I think I've finally cracked the code on why it's so hard for independent artists to follow a consistent release cycle. If the algorithms have taught us anything, it's that consistency is what breeds success. Spotify's looking for you to release new music every 4 to 6 weeks, and platforms like TikTok are looking for you to post content almost every day. And for most independent artists, that's not necessarily the most sustainable model, but I figured out why. In a conversation I had on the podcast recently, I discovered that album cycles were the cycle and the industry standard for a reason. In the days of selling music, you had to have a complete body of work to sell CDs or records or even music on iTunes. But in the modern streaming era, people are just looking for a new song or a new release. They're not looking necessarily for a whole body of work. Especially in early stages of being an independent artist, you're just trying to get someone to hear your music, and it's a lot more to ask them to listen to an album than it is to listen to a single track. Even an EP is more marketable than an album in today's day and age. So when it comes to releasing singles, this is what really slows artists down from building a consistent release cycle. In creating an album, you go through these stages of creating the songs, recording the songs, producing the songs, and then releasing the songs and promoting them. And following that cycle, it's an easy structure, and that's what you will consistently do from one body of work to the next. Now, it looks the same for a single, but the difference is you're just doing it with one track. And to release music consistently in the modern day and age, you need to be more on top of it than what that cycle looks like for an individual song. The reason that we see singles being problematic in terms of the algorithm is that when you're writing the song, then you're recording the song and releasing the song, that cycle is independent from other releases. You're not spending your time working on several songs to release over a period of time or to release as a whole body of work. You're working on one individual track to release, and that is the project in itself. Now, granted, from a release standpoint, an album isn't any better than releasing a single because you're just putting out a full body of work once a year, once every other year, once every 3 years. But focusing on a collective body of work is more sustainable for the exact reason that a single is not. I learned recently at a conference that I attended that we cannot be in different stages in a release cycle at any given point in time. You're always in one stage. Regardless of whether you have your hand in multiple projects, you yourself are always in one stage. And there's a reason that we see big artists still releasing albums. Albums are a collective body of work that you get to focus on each step of the process in itself, and they will follow that routine. You write the music, you record the music, you produce the music, you release the music, and you promote the music. Those stages follow suit, and that is just the continuous cycle that albums will follow from one record to the next. When you approach a single with the same cycle that an album would take, you're looking at that in a much smaller fashion. Yes, it takes less time to write and record a single versus 10 tracks, but you can't layer those activities over one another. Let's say from the day that you write the song to the day that it gets released and promoted, it takes about 2 or 3 months. If you do that with a few singles, you're only going to be releasing a new song every few months. But if you take the album approach where you're batch writing, batch creating, and batch releasing, then all of those tasks for each track are grouped in together and making it that much easier to really commit to whatever the task is at hand. Again, like I said, the album release strategy isn't what it used to be, and we've even seen that with the big names that are still releasing albums. In the modern streaming age, we're seeing a lot of artists that are putting out albums also release a few singles in advance to not only build momentum, but to gain attention and build hype and excitement around the upcoming album. For the independent artist, an album is a heavy task to take on. It's a lot of songs, it's a lot of recording, it's a lot of everything. It's overall just a lot. And that's why we've seen methods like the waterfall release strategy come up and become something that a lot of independent artists are taking with stride. If you're not familiar, the waterfall release method is putting together a collective body of work and releasing a song every month or so leading up to the actual project's release. Now, the hard part about this is if you release 8 out of the 10 songs as singles to build that momentum, what is there to be excited about when you've heard almost all of the songs on the collective body of work? Fans aren't going to wait around for this full album if they've already heard almost all of it. And if you don't think that your songs go together as a collective body of work, that's totally fine. I still would advocate for going through that cycle and writing and recording before you do any other steps. They always say to independents when you're focusing on releasing an album that you should have it all completely done before you even start releasing singles. And it may be hard to hold on to that music for that long and wait on releasing those songs that you want out so badly, but it does pay off in the long run. A client that I'm working rather closely with is working on her next single, but I said that we should have a few songs ready to go before we even release the first one so that we can really treat the cycle as a cycle. Circling back to why treating each single truly as a single isn't sustainable is we often try to layer those processes together and jump from one stage to the next on different projects at one given time. For example, if I have a song that I just wrote, recorded, and are ready to release, and I set it to be coming out in a month, I'm going to be in this promotional stage around that song. But if I also want to release a song after the fact, about a month or so, or 6 weeks, or even 8 weeks after the fact, I should start working on that now. Well, if I start working on that now, I'm going to be promoting this song, and then I'm also going to be writing and recording this other one, and I can't balance those two acts while giving them my full effort. You want to be able to give one project your full attention at any given time. And that doesn't mean promoting all of your music that's supposed to come out over the next 6 months all at once. It means knocking all of the songs out and then strategically releasing them a solid month or 6 weeks apart and promoting each one as the time comes. It's much easier to be in this consistent stage of promoting than to go from making TikToks and submitting to blogs and jumping back to recording vocals and sending things to your producer. You might not be able to have full control over what stage you're in at any given time, and it might be hard to wait on releasing music. But if you have an actual plan in place and you have songs and releases that you're looking forward to, then it becomes a little bit more attainable to schedule everything out so that you can really treat the stages as stages. When artists enter these promotional stages and these releasing and admin stages of the cycle, they're not worried about writing the next record or releasing the next record because this is front of mind. This is what is currently happening. This is the most important task at the given time. And there will be times where you have to jump back into these different stages just for a moment to complete a certain task, but you should be at least mostly focused on one particular stage at any given time. That also allows you to build up momentum at that point with what you're doing. I know for me recently, I've been very much in a creation stage and I've written more music in the last 2 weeks than I have in the last 3 months. And all of that music that I've been working on currently is going into the same stage and will be released periodically throughout all of next year. But with that in mind, my entire focus right now is on creating that music. I haven't set any hard deadlines for when it needs to be done because I want to let this stage be this stage, and then I will move into how I can move into the next stage for all of the different tracks. And keep in mind, all of those tracks are going to be released as singles. I am a huge advocate for albums. I think albums are still a very important part of being an artist. To be able to create such a consistent, continuous body of work is a really strong feat, and it's very important to your artistry. So it's a task that should be treated as such. I myself did an album this past year and I had 4 singles that were in advance of that. I could have done more, I could have done less, but that's what worked for me. And for the most part, I did all of the writing and creating ahead of any of the releases and any of the scheduling. I didn't exactly follow suit with having the album entirely done before even releasing a single. That was a mistake that I made. The point is to really allow your creative self to be at its fullest form at any given task. You want to only have one main idea that you're working on at any given time. And yes, Promoting might not be your favorite thing, or doing all the admin tasks might not be your favorite thing. But when you let yourself be fully immersed in that particular stage, the ideas will come more naturally and you will get used to and genuinely more acquainted with doing that act. If you spend a few weeks doing content and stuff like that, it will become more naturally and you'll be able to come up with new ways to do different things. That might not happen if you were bouncing between content and writing and recording. Every stage serves its purpose and there's a reason for the stage existing, so you need to treat it as such. Like I said, consistency is what these algorithms love more than anything else. So allowing yourself to plan and structure out the next few months or even the next year of music would be really helpful in building momentum, which is exactly why treating any sort of body of work as an album and looking at the bigger picture and not just one track is extremely important. It all comes back to holding out on releasing any music immediately so that it can pay off better in the long run. I know the feeling, we always just want the music out as soon as it's finished, but if we wait and we structure and we plan, we can really allow ourselves to become stronger creatives and let those releases do more performance-wise than they would have if they were just dropped tomorrow. You don't have to go out and create an album, but taking that sort of approach and batching what you're doing will make your life so much easier. And it will ultimately lead to any of your music performing better than it ever would have. If you found value in this video, please go subscribe to our newsletter and find us on different social media platforms. Thanks for watching.